بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم افتح علينا بحكمتك وانشر علينا برحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. يا عليم علمنا من علمك ما ترضى به عنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما تعلمه منا. يا حليم خلقنا بخلق الحلم وحققنا بحقائق العلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So we want to conclude the discussion about ghiba, about backbiting. Inshallah. What did I do? Oh. That's light. Inshallah, excuse me. And what we want to talk about is how to atone for it. So we talked about what it is, and we talked about ghiba of the heart, and we talked about when people can do it, and then we want to conclude by talking about how to atone for ghiba. Whenever we ask God's forgiveness for anything, there are three preconditions. And this pertains to all acts of forgiveness. One of them is to stop doing that thing with the intention never to repeat it. Okay, so you stop it, you have the firm intention not to repeat it, and you regret it. You are truly sorry that you did that thing. So that's the essence of tawbah. You must have those three qualities. There may also be a fourth quality, and that is that when you have harmed someone, you need to redress that harm. So if, for example, a person has stolen wealth from another, then the tawbah is not valid without some attempt to redress that by returning that wealth or by returning something in lieu of it that is of the same or greater value. And ghiba also has that aspect, because as you've seen, in ghiba, you've got to be released by the person that you hurt. And this is why ghiba is so difficult, because we don't hardly ever ask them to release us. And in fact, we don't even generally give it a second thought. And so therefore, on the Day of Judgment, we have all of these outstanding debts to people that we have harmed with our tongues. And we have to ask them to release us. And the Day of Judgment is the last place where you expect that to happen. So therefore, we also want to be released from the burden of ghiba by the people that we harmed, if at all possible in this world. When you regret having done ghiba, and may Allah fill our hearts with regret for this, and you have the intention not to do it again, and you stop doing it, then this, generally speaking, removes Allah's claim against you. This is what we call, huquq al-rububiyyah, the rights of God's lordship. Huquqillah, the rights of God. And God is relatively easy to please. God is always ready to take you back. But the other thing is haqqul ibad, the right of the servant, and that is that in the case of riba, you got to be released by that person that you harmed. Therefore, if it's possible, you want to ask them to forgive you. And we have to say also if it's reasonable, because sometimes if we tell people that we backbit them, especially if they have any idea what we said, then this may lead to even greater enmity and even greater alienation. So it's not an easy thing. It's not as if we can just ask anyone that I'm sorry I backbit you so many times. I said these horrible things about you. Would you please forgive me? In fact, it's usually hard to do that. And we have to be very intelligent about it. And this is an aspect of the religion that the Salaf as-Salih, the upright men and women of the first generations, differed on. Some of them believed that you have to ask the person that you backbit to forgive you. And if you remember the story of Al-Hasan al-Basri, of the man who backbit a celebrity, and then he asked him to forgive him, then that was that particular person's madhab, that you've got to ask them to forgive you. And of course the man didn't. He said, this is the best thing I've got in my book, the fact that a person of your righteousness said something bad about me. But the Salaf disagreed on this point. So some of them said that no, you don't have to ask people to forgive you, because that's often very precarious. It's often also virtually impossible. It's very important when we do ask people to forgive us for backbiting, that we do it wisely. In other words, you don't have to tell them exactly what you said. That, I told people that you were ugly, or that you have a really long nose, or that you're monotone, or, that you're really boring, right? So they will be hurt by that. They will be offended by that very fact. So generally, you would try to avoid saying exactly what it is, that you said, because that would often make for ill feeling, even in the best of people. It's also very important that there is no hypocrisy of show in this. Okay, well, what does that mean? It means that I'm so pious, I am so concerned about my spiritual well-being that I want to ask you to forgive me. So, no, I am really concerned about this. I want to set the record straight. Will you please forgive me? But you don't want there to be any hypocrisy of self-righteousness. And that can easily be there when we ask people to dismiss us. We don't want to show how pious we are. We have to make sure that there is no act of disdain or of contempt, when we ask them to release us from this. You could imagine, again, people saying that, I told people how ugly you are, would you please forgive me? Okay, so that would imply a certain disdain, a certain condescension. So you have to make sure that you don't bring greater harm. And the main thing in seeking to be released from the burden of backbiting is that you do a lot of dua for that person. So now you pray for them. Ask God to bless them, to set them right. Even if there is a moral defect that you had seen and talked about, you ask God to remove that from them. Make them people who are upright, people who are good. And again, as Imam al-Ghazali said, be careful about the dua, because the dua itself could be riba, especially if we made dua about a particular person in public that draws light to the fact that he or she has this particular defect. So in private, in sincerity, You want to do a lot of dua for them. You want to ask God to forgive them. And this habit also is something that's good for you because of the fact that this tends to discourage Satan. If Satan sees that you have the habit of praying for the person that you have backbitten and asking God to forgive them, then he will cease to insinuate in your heart the kind of things that would lead to that backbiting in the first place, because he doesn't want you to do that. All of the great scholars insist that you have to do these two things. Make dua for that person and ask God to forgive them. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, كَفَّارَةُ مَنْ اغْتَبْتَهُ أَن تَسْتَغْفِرَ لَهُ. He said the atonement of the person that you have backbitten is that you ask God to forgive them. It's also said that part of the atonement of backbiting is that you praise them in public. And again, you don't want to do that by lying, but you want to look at them and you want to find good qualities that they have, perhaps even hidden qualities that they have, potentials that they have, and bring those to light. Praise them. Find something good to say about them. As we said before, all human beings are mines of gold and silver and precious jewels. Every person has something praiseworthy in them. So look for that and bring that out. And make dua that Allah realize that quality in them and bring them great good. Also, you should busy yourself with hasanat, with good deeds, because we want the good deeds for ourselves. And in the next world, nothing will be more valuable to you. You can't do good deeds in the next world. Once the last breath comes and our spirits leave our bodies, amal is finished. Taklif is finished. You are left with what you earned. And we don't want to find ourselves to be paupers. We want to be rich when we go into our graves. So busy yourself continually with doing good deeds. You want to keep those. We want to keep those good deeds for ourselves. The reality of the matter is that we will have to give a lot of them away. We will have to distribute them because of the foolishness of the way we have behaved and the lack of balance in the way that we have talked. It's said that Al-Hasan al-Basri was told that a particular man had been backbiting him. And so he sent the man a platter of fresh dates from Basra, which has some of the best dates in the world. And he said, بَلَغَنِي أَنَّكَ أَهْدَيْتَ إِلَيَّ حَسَنَاتِكَ. He said, word has reached me that you made a gift to me of your good deeds. فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أُكَافِئَكَ عَلَيْهَا. So I wanted to pay you back for them. فَأَعْذَرْنِي. So pardon me. فَإِنِّي لَا أَقْدِرُ أَنْ أُكَافِئَكَ عَلَى التَّمَامِ. So please pardon me because I can't pay you back in full. I can just give you these dates, but this is the best I can do. And, this is beautiful. This is a typical example of the brilliance of Al-Hasan al-Basri. And many of the Salaf were this way. But this is also very serious. He's not making light of anything here. Because he does realize, in fact, that this man has given him a treasure of good deeds. And it sounds humorous, and it is humorous, and it is lighthearted. And this is the way we guide people. These are the kind of examples that we should keep before our eyes. You see how brilliant this is? Instead of going to the person and preaching to the person that riba is haram and you can't do this and you should ask my forgiveness because you did it. No, he sends him a platter of dates and says, thank you for your hasanat, and this is the best I can do to pay you back. These were brilliant people. These are people who definitely think outside the box, and they find beautiful, pleasing ways to win people back. You remember also that we said before that if you have to backbite someone, backbite your mother. Nobody deserves your good deeds more than your mother. Okay, but you be busy with good deeds. Good deeds bring you light in the way we dress, in the way we eat, in the way we drink, in the good deeds we do, the way we watch our eyes, we watch our ears. You get light for that. When you dress in a way that pleases God, we should be modest in the way we dress. God fills you with light. This is part of the benefit that you get. Every good deed that you do brings light and puts it in your heart. And in your spiritual journey towards God, you want to keep that light there. You want that light to grow and grow. You don't want to diminish it in any way. You don't want to be self-righteous, for example, that I'm so good, I dress this way, other people don't. I eat this way, other people don't. No, you want to be humble about this and thankful about this. But every time you do good, every time you obey God, He gives you a huge reward. And the intangible part of that reward immediately is to send light to your heart so that you can understand. You cannot believe in God without light. You cannot take the spiritual path without light. So you want to increase that light. Hasanat, we do also because we want that reward in the hereafter. As Imam al-Ghazali says, why would you exchange a palace with gardens for a piece of mud? And the palace with gardens is the reward you get for a good word. Even to say Subhanallah. As we mentioned, there was a great procession of the King Solomon, the prophet, messenger, King Solomon, with all displaying all of his power, the jinn, the angels, the birds hovering over his head. And one of the righteous believers of the children of Israel said to him, O son of David, you truly have been given a uniquely great kingdom. And the son of David, Solomon, turned to him and he said, but a single tasbihah, Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, from the likes of you is worth more than the kingdom of Solomon and everything he's been given. Okay, so definitely when we do hasanat, we're thinking about that kingdom. You're building your estate there, which is like no eye has seen and no ear has heard and has never occurred to the heart of a human being. And the garden is true and the garden is beautiful. If you saw it, this world would fade before your eyes. It looks very much like this world. Its trees, its grass, its houses, they look similar to trees and grass and things that are here, but they're utterly different because they are created to exist forever. And in them, the essence of God is manifested, not just His names, not just His attributes. Qualitatively, there is no comparison whatsoever between this world and the garden. So we believe in that. We want to be there. That's where we came from. That's where we belong. That's where we go home. And you do hasanat to develop that incredible gift that is there for you. But at the same time, when you are doing hasanat here, you are getting light. And that light enables you to understand. That light enables you to grasp with certainty and to know that these unseen truths that we believe in are actually true. This is also part of the miracle of prayer, the miracle of fasting, of charity, of pilgrimage, that we do concrete acts, tangible acts, not eating, not drinking, not doing other things that are permissible at other times. We stand, we bow, we say Allahu Akbar. We desire to go into the hadra of God's kibriya and His azama. This is what you're seeking to do in prayer. This is what happens to the arifin and the arifat. When they say Allahu Akbar, they go into the hadra, into the presence of God's kibriya, His absolute greatness that makes everything fade, and His azama. And they bow and they come back up from this bowing. Okay? But these are tangible acts. They are embodied symbols. They have metaphysical meaning. They are not just arbitrary movements. They are powerful movements. But again, one of the things they do is to make the world of the unseen tangible to you. Because the prayer is tangible. The umrah is tangible. The pilgrimage is tangible. So these tangible acts, they make tangible to you the unseen truths that you believe in. They become bridges to those things. And of course, they bring you lights and they bring you colors. They say that every act of worship has its special dye, special color that it dyes you with. Prayers in the jama'ah, prayers alone, prayers at night, different types of prayers, prayers for rain, prayers of istikhara. Each has its own color, its own dye. Fasting has a totally different dye, the dye of samadiyya, of sufficiency, seeking to be attached to the self-sufficiency of God. It is very special. There's nothing like fasting. Fasting gives you qualities that no other act of worship can give you. The Prophet told Aisha, may God be pleased with her, our beautiful mother, our wonderful mother, always keep knocking at the door of God. And she said, what is that? He said, fasting. It's the door to God. Okay? All of these acts of worship, they have their own color. And these colors are what enable you, finally, to live and to be strong in all circumstances. Whether things are good, whether things are bad, whether your life, everything is in place, everything is wonderful, nothing is wrong, you're in good health, so you have the dye that enables you to give thanks for that and to keep it. And then if everything were to go wrong, if everything were to be in disorder, if everything were to be in chaos, if your marriage were to be a misery, and you have poverty, and maybe you're a refugee, you have to leave your country, flee for your life. Many believers live this reality today and have been living this reality for a long time. But you're able to be like a mountain, and mountains don't need anchors. And why? Because you have been dyed. You have been colored by all of the various types of color that come with these acts of worship. Okay? But again, you've got to be a receptacle of light. And don't let that light go. You don't want it to leave you. That's why, don't destroy anything by self-righteousness. Don't destroy anything by doing wrong. Let the light build up stronger and stronger. Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Shadhili, may God be pleased with him, he said that the light that is in the heart of the disobedient believer, the one who doesn't pray, the one who doesn't fast, but he or she is still a believer, they're just disobedient. The light in his heart or her heart is so great that if it were released, it would blind creation. Okay? So what do you believe is the likeness the similitude of the light in the heart of the obedient believer. You know, your heart is like the Kaaba. Your heart is very special. You want to purify it, fill it with light. Then it begins to work. Then one of you asked the question about the treasures. How do I tap into these infinite treasures that are within me? And that's, of course, by purification of the heart. Filling the heart with light and not letting it diminish. Not saying anything, doing anything, looking at anything. Not backbiting, not slandering, not lying. Not doing anything that diminishes that light. And then you become a light who walks among the people. أَفَمَنْ كَانَ حَيًّا أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مَيِّتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ. Is the one who was dead and we gave him life. Who is that? Al-Faruq, Umar ibn al-Khattab. He was dead. He didn't believe. And he opposed the Prophet. And he opposed the Prophet so greatly that he even intended to kill him, which would have been suicidal. He would have been killed. He would not have left there alive. Okay? But that's the way he was. He was dead. And then God gave him life. He was going there, and this man from Zuhra says, "Where are you going, son of Al-Khattab?" And he said, "I'm going to finish this problem." And he said, "Well, maybe you should talk with your sister, Fatima." Her name was Fatima. Fatima was a very common name in Quraysh. And he said, "She's become a Muslim." So then he went to her, and he happened to overhear, as he approached her house, Surah Taha, as they were reciting that with their teacher, she and her husband. And then his heart begins to melt. And he goes in and he begins to strike her husband, but she defends her husband, and he strikes her. And he can't do that because he's a man. He hit his sister, and she begins to bleed. And so this makes him change. That this is wrong. How could I hit my sister? And then he said, "Let me listen to those words." And then she says, "You've got to make ghusl because you're not clean." And he does that. And then they recite to him these beautiful words, and he becomes alive. One of the greatest believers who ever will be. One of the greatest human beings on earth. And God gave him life. God gave him Islam and made him a light to walk among human beings. Is he like the one whose likeness remains in different types of darkness? And that is Abu Jahl. Because these two were similar. One is Umar, the other is Amr. Okay, and both of them are very big, they're very strong, they're very powerful. They are dominant people. And the Prophet had prayed, "Oh God, strengthen Islam with one of the two Umars, either with Umar or with Abu Jahl, Amr." But Amr didn't believe. Abu Jahl never will believe. And his likeness remains in pits of darkness and different types of darkness. So you want to be a light that walks among people, and then you begin to benefit others. You become a guide for others. We really need this, especially today. So do hasanat, and do them to increase your own light, and of course to get that huge reward. And inshallah, may we be wealthy on the Day of Judgment. And may Allah take all of our sayyi'at and turn them into diamonds, turn them into hasanat, just as coal is turned into diamonds. And then also, you want to try to endear yourself to that person sincerely. Try now to become that person's friend. And maybe before you disdain them, maybe before you look down upon them, but now you want to be their friend. And again, this is what you ought to do anyway. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Only the believers are brothers. Some people translate as the believers are only brothers. But it would be more precise to say only the believers are brothers. And ukhuwa here, ikhwa, is the brotherhood of blood. It's not the brotherhood of abstraction that you have in a word like ikhwan. Ikhwan can be your brother who's not your brother in blood. But ikhwa, this is blood brothers. And it means that although we are not blood brothers, but our brotherhood is even stronger than that. And although blood brothers have strong brotherhood, especially in tribal societies, like that of pre-Islamic Arabia, where the tribe is everything, that the believers have a brotherhood that goes so far beyond that it negates it as a valid type of brotherhood. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. And ikhwa here means also sisters. Sisters is included in that. It is understood in that. So we want to have tawaddud. We want to have affection between ourselves. We want to build that affection. We want to build these bonds that tie us together. But also, this person has a claim against you. So when you go back to God, you want that person to be with you. Of course I forgive him. I love him. This is my friend. This is my brother. How could I want anything from him in return? So, يجب أن يتودد إليهم. It's important then to endear yourself to that person. And often we use the word endear in a bad way, right? Like to endear ourselves sort of on the basis of false premises. So this has got to be sincere. We want to be close to them. And, so this is what they say. All right, let's end that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And now we want to talk about namima. How much time do we have? Okay, 45 minutes, is that what you said? 45? Okay. So now we want to talk about namima. And this is very, very important. Namima is hard to translate. It's a lot of these words, it's hard to find in English a translation that we feel is adequate. But namima, I prefer to call tale-bearing. It is a type of defamation. It is a type of calumny. It is when we say things that are malicious, that are false, or they may be true, but we spread these tales, we spread these calumnies among other people in order to cut the ties that bind them together, and in order to sow trouble, and to make for misunderstanding, and to make for enmity. So this is a horrible thing. Virtually, it's a type of psychosis. But disbelief is psychosis. The inability to believe in God is a type of psychosis. It means your heart's not right. There's something wrong there. You need to get it right. But this is an extreme form of malignancy. Why would anybody want to sow trouble among people and to divide them against themselves? Ordinarily, that would be something unthinkable. There are different words that we use here. In Arabic, namma, yanummu, aw yanimmu, namman. This means to carry or to run with. They translate it as as-sa'i, to run with words, be they true or false, to a second party in order to cause problems, to cause a fitna, or to bring about estrangement and unhappiness, wahsha. So this is what we call namima. And you have other words in Arabic that belong to the same phenomenon, although they represent different types of namima. So we have what's called al-qat, which would be qaf ta with shadda, al-qat. And the person that does al-qat is called qattat. And qattat is when you falsify information. And, but the reality of the qattat is essentially the same as the person of namima, the nammam, but that the qattat is a person who gets that information by eavesdropping. Such as, for example, getting close so that he can overhear what you are saying, or walking behind you and trying to get close enough to overhear what you are saying. So the qattat is an eavesdropper who's trying to listen in on what you are saying, maybe to read your emails, or to do something like that, to reveal things about you, and then he runs with it, and he takes it to other people, and he then creates this estrangement, this unhappiness, these problems. And we have also qas, which is qaf, seen, and the person that does that is qassas. And the qassas is the person who does a different type of eavesdropping. And what the qassas does is to ask other people about you. Maybe this would be reading the emails, but in any case, whether we classify it here or there, it's bad. But the qassas will come up to people and say, I saw you talking with so-and-so. What was he saying? What was he talking about? Okay, so that they collect the information by going to other people and finding out what they said. And then you also have as-si'aya, which is when you inform on others. And si'aya refers to telling the secret police, telling the ruler, telling authorities about people so that they will punish them. And that is, of course, a great evil, a huge evil. All of these forms of tale-bearing, malicious spreading of rumors and tales are reflections on the people that do them. And that's why you should never respect a person who bears tales to you. Now, it's true that we may do that unthinkingly. We may do that without any bad intent whatsoever. Maybe we hear someone talking about a brother or a sister in a way that is shocking to us, in a way that may show a certain betrayal or infidelity or lack of concern. And so we feel that we want to warn them about that. We want to tell them about that. But this is namima. It might be justified in certain cases. Okay? If you look at the circumstances, there might be certain times when you have to tell this person that you can't really trust this person. He doesn't really believe in you. He really says bad things about you behind your back. Okay? So there are cases where that would be justified, but as a rule, you don't want to do that. And again, we may have such a wonderful relationship with that person, and then someone comes and says, he said this about you. He said this about a so-and-so. And it's good to deny that. That's what you should do. But in your heart, it's very difficult to remove your memory of that thing. That why did he say that about me? What is it? Are there other things there? So trouble has been caused, and there was no need for that. That's not right to do. So namima is, as a rule, a very bad reflection on the person that does it. And again, I just want to say that we have to also pardon people, who often do this with the best of intention. They really don't mean any harm. But we have to train ourselves not to do that. Just leave it alone, unless it's absolutely necessary. If and when we do it, and I think we all do this, we all bear tales, generally with good intentions. But when we do this, then we must repent. We must desist. We've got to stop. And we should be ashamed of ourselves. Why did I do that? We must be very critical of ourselves in this regard. And generally speaking, namima reflects lack of nobility, lack of principle, and a lack of essential human goodness, especially when we talk about the people who have the habit of doing this, who do this impulsively. And the namam, the person who bears tales to other people, it's as if he or she carries a banner above themselves, a flag, which says, I am nothing. I have no dignity. I have no honor. I have nothing in me that I'm really proud of. I have no good reputation. Maybe not even in my parents and not in my family. Okay, that's what namima is saying. And therefore, you don't want to say that about yourself. And therefore, also, you want to be part of stopping this. If a person brings you a tale, you've got to try to stop it. We have talked a great deal about honor. And we are people that want to build up the honor and nurse the honor of all of the brothers and sisters around us, even if they're not very honorable. We want to give them a chance. We want to build that honor up. And we want to create a society of honor. And therefore, we are going to be really serious about the way we talk, the tales we bear, and the things that we say. Allah says in the Quran, وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ فِي جِيدِهَا حَبْلٌ مِّن مَّسَدٍ. This is, as you know, in Surah Al-Masad at the end of the Quran. And his wife, Jamil, the carrier of firewood. Around her neck shall be a palm fiber rope. Not the beautiful necklace she wears. She was a very beautiful woman, but in the fire she will have a rope around her neck and she will be pulled by it. And this is because she would collect firewood with thorns on it. And often in places like the desert, the only wood that you can burn is thorny. And so she would get that thorny firewood, the hatab, and she would collect it, and she would put it at the front of the Prophet's door, who's her neighbor, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in Bani Hashim, so that maybe when he comes out of his house, he will step in the thorns and cut himself. Okay, this is what she's doing. She's called Hammalat al-Hatab, the one who's always carrying the firewood. But also, she carried another type of firewood, and that was that she was a namama. She was a bearer of tales. So Jamil would always listen to what the Prophet said, or she would ask others about what he said, or she would eavesdrop on what he said, and then she would run with that news to Quraysh. And she is one of the ones who made life so difficult for him. She and her husband Abu Lahab, they made life very difficult for the Prophet, seeking always, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeking always to pit the people of Mecca against him. This is one of the reasons why he is named in the Quran, Abu Lahab, by his laqab, by his name, because he was one of the worst of the enemies of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, doing everything he could do, he and his wife, to turn the oligarchy of Quraysh against the Prophet. What an unfortunate soul, and what incredible jealousy he and she had. And he had been very close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his nephew, until the Prophet became a prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she and her husband were always causing fitna by spreading tales. And this sin is so great and so ignoble that Allah speaks of them directly in the Quran in the very severe terms that he does. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "La yadkhulu al-jannata nammam." The tale-bearer will not enter the garden. The tale-bearer will not enter the garden. And he said also, "La yadkhulu al-jannata qattat." That the qattat, who is this tale-bearer, who, as you remember, gets his tales by eavesdropping, by listening in on what you say, he or she won't enter the fire. Allah says in the Quran, ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا الصالحين فخانتاهما فلم يغنيا عنهما من الله شيئا وقيل ادخلا النار مع الداخلين. Allah says in Surah At-Tahrim, at the end of the surah, towards the end of the surah, Surah 66, God has given an example of the disbelievers, the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot. They were married to two of our virtuous servants, infallible prophets and messengers, but they betrayed them. How did they betray them? Namimah. They bore tales. The wife of Noah and the wife of Lot, that's what they did. They walked among the people bearing tales, often false, sometimes true, about their husbands. They would say, he's majnoon, he's insane. Whatever you say about him is true. And then in the case of the wife of Lot, when guests would come to his house, she would make that known to her people. Often not by saying anything, but by lighting a particular type of fire in her house that let out a certain type of smoke. And then they would know he's got guests. So that's also namimah, even though she didn't say anything in that particular case. And because they were guilty of namimah, then God struck this similitude about them. And he made them an eternal example of the damned and the forsaken, who have the best of husbands, and yet they become the worst of people. So their namimah in particular is what put them beyond the pale of belief and the pale of salvation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, أحبكم إلى الله أحاسنكم أخلاقا. The most beloved of you to God are those of you with the best type of character, or the best types of character. It's a very beautiful expression in Arabic because it indicates that there are many types of good character. But those who have the best types of character, they are the most beloved to God. And as you know also, they will sit closest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the garden. أحبكم إلى الله أحاسنكم أخلاقا الموطؤون أكنافا الذين يألفون ويؤلفون وإن أبغضكم Okay, so let's finish this. The most beloved of you to God are those of you with the best types of character, those who lower themselves, who humble themselves in friendship and humility to others. They're easy to be friends with. This is one of the signs of good character. People of good character are easy to live with. They're easy to get along with. Al-muwatta'una ka'aknafan. They are people that lower themselves to others in friendship and in humility. Those who make friends with others and are made friends. Ya'lafuna wa yu'lafun. It's easy to become their friend. And they also make friends easily. And they are made friends easily. Then he said, Inna abghadakum ila Allahi al-masha'una bin-namima. He says, al-masha'una bin-namima. Al-mufarriquna bayn al-ikhwan. Al-multamisuna lil-bura'a'i al-atharat. And the most hateful of you in the eyes of God are those who are constantly walking back and forth with namima, bearing tales to this group, to that group, to those people, to this group. We have to be really careful what we say on social media. We have to be very careful what we post on YouTube. We talked about that before. Do you have the permission of Sheikh Hamza to put him on YouTube? Do you have the permission of Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad to put him on YouTube? Just because you heard it, just because you maybe got it on film, it doesn't mean that you have a right to put it up there. And that could be tale-bearing. Because who is going to see this? Who is going to hear this? We say things among ourselves, which we say quite easily and perhaps sometimes unwisely, because we know that you are brothers and sisters, and you are our family. You belong to A'ilatul Mustami'een, the family of the listeners who want to hear the words of God and His Messenger and the wisdoms of the Salaf as-Salih and the awliya. But not everybody out there is like that. And some of the things that we say here that build us up and make us strong and illuminate our hearts would make huge enemies out there among people who don't have that light and who are blinded by their own fanaticism for the various innovations that they may have or the ignorance they may have. They may be people who are jealous. Okay, so you can't just put everything up there. And may Allah make us wise in that. It's very difficult today because we say something and it goes to the whole world. But the worst of you, the most hateful of you in the sight of God are those who are constantly running back and forth between people, spreading namima, those who bring divisions between brothers and sisters, and those who seek out and disclose the false steps, the stumbles of the righteous. As all of us do make mistakes, all of us do have shortcomings. So you try to dig that up and you try to put that out there and to show it to people. We talked before about the fact that because we are people of honor, because we are people who try to build the pillar of honor, which is one of the essential pillars of a sound and sane society, that we don't go around digging up the muck that we can find about other people, even though it may be true. And we want to protect the good name of each other, and especially the good name of our great teachers, like Imam Zayd and Sheikh Hamza and Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad and Dr. Jackson and so many others that we can think of. Okay, that's your duty. Protect their honor, defend them, and be very careful when you, in your enthusiasm and your love, speak about the teaching they give you which might not be received correctly by other people, because that could also be backbiting. So namima then falls under the rubric of backbiting, except that it is an extreme form. And of course it falls under the rubric of backbiting when what we say is true, such as the wife of Lot saying he has guests. It wasn't a lie, yet it was namima, because she's spreading the tale. Although namima can often be utterly false. And this is something that we often see in enemies, that they falsify the things they say about the people that they hate. And they spread those tales. And this is a great evil. La yadkhul jannata namam. The spreader of tales will not enter the garden. Okay. Okay. So, thank you. Imam al-Ghazali says the ultimate reality of namima is that it is ifsha as-sirr. It is spreading the secrets, revealing and spreading the secrets of other people. Earlier, you remember very well, we were talking about how important it is to have confidentiality and to be really careful about spreading other people's secrets. So these two things are opposites. Namima is when we spread those secrets, and we don't generally have a great deal of inhibition about that. We justify it to ourselves, perhaps, for one reason or another. But the positive thing is that we want to train ourselves not to give away other people's secrets. We talked about that to great length. So confidentiality. You want to be the grave of secrets. Qulubul ahrar, quburul asrar. The hearts of the free men and women, the righteous men and women, whom God has set free because they are His servants. They are the graves in which the secrets of people are buried. They don't tell anything about other people's secrets. And they won't tell anything about other people's secrets unless they absolutely have to, for a really good reason or for a really bad reason, like this person will hurt people. They may tell it for a good reason, so that this person can be set right. And they may do it for what would be something bad, that this person would harm people. But we want to train ourselves to be people that, like clams, we just shut down on those secrets and we turn them into pearls. We don't spread them to other people. Confidentiality is such a great quality of good character. And then it is also hetkus sitr. It is ripping apart the veil that conceals people's faults. God has concealed them, and then the person who does namima, he or she rips that veil to shreds so that all the world can see. It's a very ugly thing, a very evil thing. Okay? People, Imam al-Ghazali says, are usually driven to namima, tale-bearing, either because, one, they want to cause suffering, hurt, or harm to the person they speak about. People like you, I'm going to see they don't like you. People are attracted to you and your teaching, like Maulana Sheikh Hamza, I want to see that that doesn't happen. Put up things on YouTube and other things to defame and to distort so that people are diverted from this good. That's very evil. That's great evil. So often they want to hurt that person. And often also in doing this, strangely, ironically, they want to create the appearance of their loyalty to the person that they bring the tale to. So they're also trying to appear that they sincerely care about you. I've got to tell you this. It's painful for me to do this, but you've got to know. So there's often that hypocrisy that's there as well, and trying to show that I really care about you, and therefore I've got to tell you this. You're important to me. Or sometimes, this is the least category, they're just passing the time. Or they are trying to entertain people with speech. And of course, this is, unlike superfluous speech, or speech about what does not concern us, something that they bring in because people actually may want to hear this. If they're not morally trained, if they don't have a spiritual ear, then often they want to know these things because you're telling them things about people that they didn't know and perhaps they didn't expect. What do you do when people come to you bearing tales? First of all, don't believe a thing they say. Don't believe a thing they say. And, you know, we talked the other day about blackmail. And blackmail, we talked about under the heading of riba, although in reality blackmail probably belongs more in the category of namima. It's just that the blackmailer comes to you first and says, I've got this information about you, which in the case of blackmail may be true. Sometimes it's not true. Sometimes it's an actual lie, you know, but they say, I'm going to say this about you. You know, some instances come to my mind of people who did horrible blackmail this last year, you know, I don't need to go into that, but they made up the stories basically to protect themselves because they were going to court over certain things they'd done. So they began to blackmail other people so that those people not take them to court. In any case, blackmail is one of the horrible types of namima, and you reject what the blackmailer says, no matter what it is. As we've said before, if a blackmailer digs up something about a sister in her past who maybe wasn't a practicing Muslim and maybe was doing things she shouldn't have done, once she has left that, she's done tawbah from that, it's over, it's finished, and it's not true. Because God accepted her tawbah, that's finished. And therefore you deny it. Even if they have photographs, you deny it. This is not true. This is a lie. And you be courageous. You be like a lion in that, whether it's a man or a woman. This is what by Sharia you have to do. This is not true. Why do you bring me lies? And usually the talebearer, if you respond that way, like, that's a lie, they're shut up because, again, they're often trying to endear themselves. They're often trying to convince you that they're loyal to you. Although, as Al-Hasan al-Basri said, "Man namma ilayka, namma alayk." Whoever bears the tales of others to you, who does namima about others to you, they will also bear tales about you to others. So don't be confident. Don't put your confidence in them. You know, they are going to do the same thing about you that they did about those people when they came to you with their tales. So never believe the namam. Disbelieve him, disbelieve her, and say to them, I don't believe a word you say. and say that that's not true. I know that's not true. Even if it were the truth, even if it had been the truth. Okay, and what are you doing here? This is a license. This is an obligation you have to, again, defend their honor. Protect their honor. That we will not listen to any of this. There's not going to be any room for this here. And also, the namam is a fasiq. The namam is a person of perversity, a corrupt person. We want that person to do tawbah. And again, we all make these mistakes innocently. But we've got to ask forgiveness for that. And we've got to know that this is the quality of fisq, of corruption. So I don't want that quality. I don't want to do that. But the namam, especially the one who has the habit of doing this, is a fasiq. They are a corrupt person. And the fasiq and the hypocrite in the Quran is usually referred to as a fasiq. Fisq is one of those characteristics of the hypocrite that is emphasized over and over again in the Quran. So when they show themselves to you in this light, you need to step back. And how you speak to them is your own judgment, depending on the situation, depending on the circumstances. But don't take this lightly. You must not believe them. And you must also insist that others disbelieve them. And you must emphasize the good characteristics of this person and establish husn al-dhann, good belief. May Allah enable us to live by these standards. The standards that Imam al-Ghazali is bringing to us are really difficult. Yeah, they're very difficult. You think the Day of Judgment is easy? The Day of Judgment, which is like 50,000 years? And for all of us, the mawqif, the gathering, will be the most difficult time of our existence. Even those of us who are going to the garden, and may we all be going to the garden together. And may we be joined under the liwa'ul hamd, the banner of praise, with the Prophet together. And yet that will be a difficult day. That will be a hard day. And if we are taken to task, then you will wish that you were never born. The disbeliever on that day wishes that he had been nothing but a handful of dust. In other words, that he had never been recreated, that he had never been brought back to life, that he had been just dust as he believes he will be. No, it's not like that. Everything will be there in detail. And either Allah will receive us with infinite mercy and cover us over with ghufran and make it easy for us, or it will be so difficult. And that's why you've got to train yourself now. You've got to prepare yourself now. And you have to keep the company of the people of light, who are the people in this room and others like them. And take life seriously. Take what you do seriously. Prepare for the hereafter. As Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, if you call death to mind frequently, you will be content with little in this world. And when you know that your speech is a voluntary action, a moral action, an amal, then you will speak little except about what concerns you. We want to wake up to that. We want to be aware of that. We want to prepare for that. And we pray that that day will be easy. If you prepare for it now, even though that makes it difficult for you, you have to watch your tongue. You have to watch what you look at. You have to be heedful and not be heedless. That day will be easy for you. And God will give you beautiful friends in this world. God will put you in beautiful company in this world. It is not permissible to praise the person who bears tales to you. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. How did you learn that? Many other things that you could say. You can't praise them. That's forbidden. You cannot affirm what they are doing. Don't even shake your head as if in dismay, like, God, I didn't know that. Oh, or in approval. Like, really, is that so? You don't even shake your head. You have to be jalali. You have to be majestic. When they bring to you these kind of reports, you be majestic. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Pray for me, and we pray for you that we're able to do this. All of us fall short. We fall short in this. And we want to get better. We want to do it better, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. It is also fitting for you to forbid them from doing this. This is a clear case of al-amru bil-ma'ruf wa-nahyu anil munkar, of enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. When you tell that person, don't bear these tales to me, I don't want to hear this. Also, it's very important not to repeat what they say. Okay? Then you become like them. So it stops right there. You deny it, and you show that you are in disapproval, and be careful not to spread the tale. Let's stop here, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. How much time do we have? Huh? Okay. So now we come to the difficult task, trying to answer questions. They say there's no such thing as a stupid question, but they don't say that about answers. And it's not easy sometimes to find good answers. May Allah give us tawfiq. I was told that when you see someone and feel uncomfortable or have a negative feeling about that person, it comes from the divine. Well, as we saw when we studied about this, it often comes from the demonic. It often comes from Satan himself. And this is what he tells you. You see with the light of Allah. The believer sees with the light of Allah. You have so much insight. You're so subtle. You just saw it like that. You saw this person in his reality. That doesn't come from the divine. If it does come from the divine, then you won't say a word. Because among the awliya, there are people who have closed and locked down the door of satanic insinuation, and also of the lower insinuations of the self. They do that through discipline. They do that through hard work. So usually what they get comes from the angels, or it comes from the divine. If they see something bad about a person, that will be a secret they bury in their heart. And it will be as if they didn't see that, because they will deal with that person in a beautiful way. And that's the way the Prophet was, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, even with the hypocrites, look at the seerah of the Prophet. It's like he never stops loving them. He always goes to them. He always tries to win them over. He was not harsh with them. And, so this is the way that the people who see with the divine light are. And if God reveals to them a fault, they don't want to see it. They don't want to know that. But if they see that, they will use that to try to develop that person and to make them strong. They would never use it to backbite or to slander or to bear tales. And it would not affect their behavior. In fact, their behavior might be even greater. Those last verses of Surah Tawbah, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. There has come to you a messenger from yourselves. Okay, this is a farewell. There has come to you a messenger from yourselves. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. How do we translate that? It is very hard on him. It burdens him that you meet with difficulty. Harisun alaykum. He is intent upon your well-being. Who was this revealed about? Who were these people? All human people, all humankind. That's what some of our great commentators say. And it refers even to Abu Jahl, even to Abu Lahab. The Prophet never took joy in the damnation of his uncle or his cousin or any of the people. That's not the way he was. He was magnanimous. He was a person of a great soul, a huge soul. And therefore, he could relate to all people, even the hypocrites. And he could try to call them back with love and with a smile, to try to save them if he can. That's the way he was. That's the way that people with big souls are. People with big souls don't like to have enemies. They say that the aql is not content to have a single enemy, whereas the ahmaq cannot have enough enemies. The ahmaq, the fool, is always trying to get more enemies. Okay? So when the heart is big and filled with light, then it has compassion. It has empathy with all people, even the people who are the most deprived, even the people who are the least felicitous. Okay, the Prophet did not hate them. He hated their deeds. And if he could have saved them at any moment, he would have reached out for them. Why do the commentators say that that's what it means? That it's in general, about all people. Because the verse concludes by saying, Bil mu'minina ra'ufur rahim. With regard to the believers, he is kind and merciful. So here it shows that the people spoken about before, they are broader than the believers. So it includes the believers and the disbelievers, those who accept faith and those who reject it. Honor is so important for us, the honor of the human being in general. We are not people who hate others, and we must not let barriers of hate keep us from others. And we have to be people that have humility and are able to take this message, bi-idhnillahi, to all. So, when Allah loves someone, then He tells Jibreel that I love him. And also when Allah does not love someone, then that person will be disliked. Okay, but this is not your business. And the person may appear to you as a person who's not liked. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love them. Doesn't mean that every person who's not popular is not loved by God. And it doesn't mean that every person who is popular is also loved by God. That's not the way it works. But you, if you please God and God loves you, then He will make it easy for you to find a way into other people's hearts. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. We've got so many questions. What are we going to do? Okay, so we'll try to... Okay. What kind of opinion should we have of ourselves? How do we balance feeling unworthy before God and maintaining motivation to work to please God? Very good question. So there are many things that you have to learn to balance. And this is one of the secrets of this faith, is being able to balance apparent opposites, to be able to juggle a little bit. So what is the most important thing that I need to know about myself? What is most important that I know about myself are my essential attributes. And I am created from nothing. and therefore in my essence, I am nothing. So what do I have to be proud of? What do I have to be arrogant about? How can I lord it over anyone? That would be ignorance and ingratitude. And therefore, my essential qualities are dhul, insignificance, and faqr, contingency, poverty. I am nothing but need, and you are nothing but need. Can you sustain your life another breath? Can you make your heart beat another beat? You don't have power over that. That is in the hands of God. We are utterly dependent on God, who has no need whatsoever. And you studied about these things in Aqidah. And I am da'if, I am weak. I'm not strong. And I am ajiz, incapable. In other words, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to set things right. Okay, these are my essential attributes. These are my essential qualities. Everything else is a gift from God. So we thank God and we glorify God, and we be humble. We must be humble in front of other people. Many people today, it's really hard for them to hear those words. That I am dhalil, I am faqir, I am da'if, I am ajiz, in this world of the autonomous individual, who is be yourself, you are great, you can be someone. So they don't like to hear these things. And in fact, it would reduce some people to tears, or other people just walk out of the door. But this is the truth. And this is self-knowledge. You cannot know God without knowing yourself. And self-knowledge is huge. Islamic science was all about self-knowledge. Why do you study about water? To learn about yourself. Why do you study about the planets? To learn about yourself. Why do you study about botany? To learn about yourself. That was the way our sciences were predicated. Very different worldview, isn't it? That made them totally different. You've got to have self-knowledge, but this is the rock foundation that can never be left. That I am dhalil, and therefore if I know my dhul, I know God's izz, God's majesty. And if I know my faqr, I know His ghina, I know His self-sufficiency. And by knowing my da'f, I know His power. And by knowing my ajiz, I know His qudra. So this is how you know God. And then when you know this reality about yourself, you see how God moves things and moves you in your life. This is the basis of what we call mushahada and muraqaba, the witnessing of God and the keeping watch for God, the signs of God in creation. So this is the reality. If you have knowledge, there is no basis for pride. There's no basis for ignorance and arrogance. Okay? And then also you look up to others. Because although they have that same essential nature, you must look up to them as God's creation. That's the basis of good character. All good character goes back to two things. Humility, that you're not proud, you're not arrogant. And then looking up to the other. All good character goes around that. So in your knowledge of the self, you've got to have that bottom bedrock. And you can never leave it. And yet, at the same time, God ennobled you. God made you the son or the daughter of Adam. And Adam was perfect. Adam was a messenger. And you inherited from Adam infinite good and infinite wealth. And also part of self-knowledge is that you are the blueprint of the universe. And the universe is the blueprint of you. You are the little world, the microcosm, and that is the macrocosm. Everything that is out there, is also in here in a general way. Okay? And you are the one that if you mention God's name, He will mention your name in the assembly of the Most High. And here we are in this assembly talking about God, talking about the prophets, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is pleasing to God. This is dhikr. And God writes down our names and mentions our names individually in His assembly. So who are you? You are cosmic. You are of cosmic proportions. And you are the one who is the son or daughter of the Khalifa, of God's Caliph in earth, His steward in earth. And if you get yourself right, and you become a wali of Allah, and you become a light that walks among people, you affect the birds, the trees, the water, the entire environment. When the saint dies, the whales of the ocean cry. The birds moan. Okay, this is what our Prophet taught us. So who are you? You are the life of the world. You are the breath of this world. The state of affairs in the world, whether good or bad, the state of affairs in nature always reflects the reality of the human being. If the human being is good and believes and has real religion, true religion, the world will be good, the water will be pure, the birds will flourish. Okay, there is a direct metaphysical relationship between you and the world around you. This is also why there is a garden and why there is a fire. And we could talk about that at great length. Those are metaphysical truths. They are not just there as moral incentives or inhibitions. No, not at all. The people who go to the fire will want to go to the fire. When they discover the truth about themselves, they are relieved to go into the fire. They don't understand that now. The fire would never intimidate them in the least. They don't believe in anything. They live their life in neutral or reverse. Okay, so who are you? And if you turn your back on your legacy, and if we disbelieve, and we live in the age of secular reductionism, ignorance, profound ignorance, systematic superficiality, that's the age we live in. You ask, God says, do they not consider the heavens and the earth? Do they not contemplate the heavens and the earth? These people today? No, they can't. They are incapable of that because they are systematically superficial. They don't have the words. They don't have the cognitive frames. They don't even know how to believe in God. They don't know how to even begin to believe in God. And that's why you have to give them back language. You have to give them cognitive frames. This is what Sheikh Faraz is doing. You have to give them the tools to think. The difference between necessary being and possible existence. That is incredible. I can think now. I can see. You know the ontological necessities of contingent being. That it must be in time, it must be in place, it must have shape, it must have quality, it must have directions, it must have other necessities. And God is totally unlike that. God is not in me. He is not outside of me. He's not touching me. He's not touching me. People today can't think like that. Traditional people can almost always think like that because they have different language. Often they have language which is ancient language, filled with richness. We've changed all of that. We have distorted our languages. We have a Dutch sister who's a really wonderful sister, and she knows English really well. And sometimes she listens to people like Sheikh Hamza talk, and she says, I don't think we can say this in Dutch today. She said, Dutch has been made so secular and reductionist that we can't even say these things. I asked one great Dutch Muslim if he agreed, and he said he totally disagreed. He said, I think we can say it in Dutch too. We can say it in Swedish and Norwegian, Icelandic, German, Russian. All of these languages have the ability to do that. And we've got to turn these languages into vehicles of truth. And we had a question about that. We love Arabic, but we also have got to serve these languages that we speak. And we've got to make them vehicles of thought with powerful cognitive frames. Okay, so who are you? You are the one who, if you turn your back and you disbelieve and you become a zombie, like so many human beings are today, who don't even know what reality is, they can't begin to know what reality is, then you destroy yourself and you destroy the world. You destroy the water, the forest, the rainforest, the birds. They won't cry for you. When that disbeliever dies, they are relieved, especially if some believers remain instead. This is amazing. These are metaphysical truths about you. But in order for you to be effective on that plane, you have got to be able to prostrate your forehead on the ground in submission to God. And you've got to be perpetually humble. Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani al-Qutb al-Ghawth, may God be pleased with him, he said, whoever thinks he has a station, what did he say? Has no station at all. Whoever thinks he has a special weight has no weight at all. No station is my station. Okay, and by this, you can't look at yourself. To look at, you have to know yourself in your essential truth. Then you can witness the miracle of God working in your life in every moment, every day, every night. And then you grow into this reality, which is absolutely beautiful, because you are beautiful. You are the radiance of beauty. You're filled with beauty. You're filled with the truth. Okay, but you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say that. Then you lose it all. The higher you go on the mountain, the further you can fall. You've got to have somebody to help you. We go in caravans, right? We crossed the desert in the old days in caravans. And they say that the dogs bark at the caravans when they go through the villages, but the caravan leaves the dogs barking and it goes on. We have important things to do. There are a lot of dogs that bark. This is haram, this is bid'ah, this is bid'ah. I remember Al-Habib Ahmed Mashur, who is one of the most beautiful human beings I ever met in my life. And Sheikh Hamza had the honor to sit with him too. And he used to say, قَوْلُهُمْ bid'ah, bid'ah. The way they say bid'ah is a bid'ah. We never did that, right? You know that. We talked about enjoining right and forbidding wrong. That had a bid'ah, this is bid'ah, this is bid'ah, this is bid'ah, I'm bid'ah, right? The person sees bid'ah because he's got so much of it in himself. Okay? But we have got to be able to balance them, because you are the jewel. You are the pearl that is hidden in the oyster. And yet, in order for that pearl to grow and to become a brilliant pearl, you've got to remain humble. And you can never forget the reality of yourself. You who, like me, were created from nothing. What did I do to deserve existence? Existence is beyond words. Evil is rooted in nothingness. Evil is rooted in privation. Evil is rooted in non-existence. Evil is always psychic. Evil is real. It hurts people. It destroys civilization. But evil is rooted in the non-existent. That's its strange quality. That's why it's weak. That's why when you get the truth, you can stand up against evil. In the United States, we have these wonderful people like Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik. And he lived in impossible circumstances. And he knew that he wouldn't live long. You know, he was the meteor that flashed across the sky, and poor people like me were guided to Islam by his light. May God bless him and forgive him. Do you realize how difficult it was to do what he did? To go up before the white supremacist establishment of racist America and to tell the truth? You know, when they mock him, they belittle him, and he did it with courage. Why? because he found the truth and he knew the nature of evil. Evil is in non-existence. And he saw they have nothing. I'm not afraid of them. You have people like Sojourner Truth, a woman called Moses. You know, these were great women who would get the slaves out of slavery and try to get them into freedom. Were they strong? Were they big? Were they powerful? No, they were often little women, strong as mountains. Okay? But they knew the nature of evil. They had seen it, and therefore they could stand up to it. Evil is weak. You know, you are strong. You know, you have the blessing of existence. If only you could realize how great that is. You have the blessing of identity, and you've got to balance these things. And we hold these things, these apparent contradictions. How can you be created from nothing and be essentially as you are, and yet be this microcosm that will turn everything around? Okay? This is the beauty of Islam, that it's able to hold things, all these things together until they come to fruition. So time is up. There's lots of paper still here. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question. I'm tremendously sorry if I said anything that offended anyone. May we forgive each other. May we have a good opinion of each other. May we interpret well everything that is said. And may God give us long lives and wonderful lives. And may he enable us to work together. You know, you are the one. When God wants to destroy this world, what does he do? There will never be a believer on the face of the earth when he destroys it. Isn't that true? You know, the awliya are always there. They're not necessarily seen, but they're always there until the time comes for the end. And then God takes the souls of all the believers, right? And he gathers them together and he takes them to the next world. And no believer is left on the earth. No one who even says, Allah, Allah, Allah. And then the world, by its very nature, grinds down to its finish because it can't live without a breath. The world breathes by you. The world, and this world today, you know, we have such a difficult circumstance in which to live. And you see how things only seem to get worse. But it's not like that, because in this world there is a pearl that is hidden in the oyster, and that's you, who believe in God and who care about your heart and who want to get yourself right. And you are the tide. There's the ebb and the flow. And it goes back and forth between an army of people who've been disarmed, an army of people who can't think. They don't have language. They don't have the cognitive frames. They don't have a clue. And they are destroying the world. They took the wrong path. They persisted in that path. The world is coming to an end. Okay, and then there's you, and you are the one who's bringing it back to life. And some people say that for this reason, the world itself will try to conspire to give you longer life and to give you health, because it can't survive without you, whether it likes you or not. So, inshallah, you've got to be a believer. You've got to fill yourself with this light. Don't let this light diminish. Seal it in. Let it grow. There are two types of lights that come to you from God. They are anwar al-wusul wa anwar al-dukhul. They're lights of arrival. These are lights that help you to arrive at God. And these are lights that come to your heart, but then they go away. They give you the ability to believe. They give you the ability to be good, to be virtuous. Okay, and then there are lights of entrance. And those lights, they come to your heart and they look at your heart. Almost like a little bird. You know, if the little bird comes to your feeder in the backyard, the bird's really careful that there are no big birds, there are no blue jays, and, no falcons, and that there are no cats, maybe squirrels. And then if the coast is clear, the little bird goes to eat, right? So these lights are like that too. They come to your heart and they say, is anything in there? Because if there is, they won't go. You're attached to other than God. You are preoccupied with illusions. They won't go. When your heart is empty and pure and there's nothing there but your love of God, then they come in. And your heart becomes like the celestial Kaaba. Your heart is like the Kaaba. The Kaaba is the likeness of your heart. But the celestial Kaaba, the angels go into it by the tens and tens of thousands, and they never come out. And that's what happens to you when your heart is pure, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And then you are a great benefit to humanity, and you're a great benefit to the trees and to the water and to the animals and everything else. There's so much to say, but we have to put into practice what we hear. And inshallah, you're good at that. And when you go home, may you really work hard to keep this inspiration that you get and to transform yourself and to transform others and to put into practice these beautiful teachings that we've received from these beautiful teachers. Ameen. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه وجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. آمين 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 يا رب العالمين. May you have beautiful lives. May everything go well. And I was told that you might like to come back and be together again. So if I'm allowed to do that, we will recite a verse together that will ensure that we come back together. And this is the verse that was revealed to the Blessed Prophet on his hijrah. And he was in Al-Juhfa, which is today Rabigh. And he was missing Mecca because he was born there, he lived there his whole life. It's not easy to leave your mother's city. And he's very sad. And so Allah revealed to him that God, who revealed the Quran to you and made it an obligation to do hijrah, He will bring you back at an appointed time, bring you back to Mecca. So one of the secrets of this verse, and every verse in the Quran has secrets, is that it will bring you back to the place you're at. So we'll do that, inshallah. And when I step forward with my right foot, then you step forward. You have to stand up. Okay, so when I step forward with my right foot, you step forward. This is not a bid'ah, okay? This is not a bid'ah. We got this from people that are the people of Allah. They know these secrets. Say after me. Inna alladhi farada alayka al-Qur'ana laradduka ila ma'ad. We'll be back together, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.